All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. Today's guest is part of our Business Owner series and will offer insights into the needs, wants, and desires of this highly sought after client demo. So today's guest is an incredible business owner, Tommy Joyner. Tommy, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hey, what's going on? I'm Tommy Joyner, and I've historically been in the digital marketing space. I've run and built and sold a couple agencies. Live in Barcelona currently, and yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome, man. So, how long have you been an entrepreneur?
I made my first dollar online like 13 years ago, almost exactly. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
since then,
Happy 13th anniversary, my friend.
thanks.
What were you doing before the entrepreneur game called your name?
So when I graduated college in 2008, I worked for a commercial insurance agency. So I sold commercial insurance, knocking on doors for a couple years in Denver, Colorado. And I primarily sold liability insurance and insurance to property insurance for like apartment buildings. Um, and then uh, and then I had a bunch of different sales jobs, kind of hopped around. Uh, Worked at a trade publication, selling advertising, doing a couple different things for the next like year and a half, 2 years. And then eventually I moved to South Korea and taught English. And then after teaching English, I moved to Medellin, Colombia, which is where I met a bunch of online entrepreneurs and started my journey making money online.
Oh, wow. Okay. So your initial travels were just to teach English in those places, and then you met some wild digital nomads that said there was another way.
Well, actually, I read the 4 Hour Work Week like a lot of people.
Ah,
But
same.
I was graduating college in 2008. And so I think the book came out in 2008. And the year after I graduated, one of my friends gave that book to me. So
Uh,
in like nine, I read that book and it was sort of like, it planted some seeds about like what was actually possible.
mhm.
Um, so I wasn't necessarily confident enough, and I didn't really have the network for people who were making money online or doing anything outside of uh, the only entrepreneurs that I knew were doing like blue collar things, let's say. So I didn't know anybody
Mhm.
that was doing like online stuff. And so originally when I moved to South Korea was to teach English, but I always in the back of my mind I wanted to figure out how to make money online.
Nice, nice. That's awesome with the 4 hour work week. I was in my van pool going from downtown Orlando to Kennedy Space Center, an hour and 15 minute each way. And I was so bored that I would read books. And I forget how I came across it, but somebody gave me the 4 hour work week. And I was like, I think I was 50 pages in, and I'd been working at this job for like maybe a year. 50 pages in, and I look up from the book and I'm like, I'm gonna quit my job and just do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
Oh,
interesting.
yeah.
I think a lot of us have that story, but it's, that's genuinely like was my spark.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it was there in me because a lot of my family members are also entrepreneurs. But that book definitely like, pulled it out and was like, dude, like look at this.
Yeah,
So that's
provided.
it's amazing. Yeah. That's cool. So what was South Korea? You just that was like a cool country you wanted to check out, or was there more to that destination?
I originally just wanted to go to Latin America, actually.
Okay.
And I but I had a couple friends teaching English in Seoul and a couple friends in some other countries in Asia. And that was like, they were actually like making enough money to like live and actually save some money so that by the time they were done with that experience, they actually could do something else. So uh, it was primarily based on like comparing different countries in terms of where I could go and like actually come out of it like on top. And that was the main decision factor. I actually saved like quite a bit of money while I was over there. So by the time I moved to Latin America afterwards, I had like, like I could live for like, 3 years without working if I needed to.
Mm,
That was like sort of
hmm
plan.
mm. And what was the draw of Latin America? What?
I just had always wanted to become fluent in Spanish, and I had been traveling a few years earlier, and I made it to Costa Rica and Panama. And like I had a couple friends that were actually in Medellin and Cartagena at the time, and so Colombia was like the destination that I like didn't quite make it to. So I felt like there was like this extra thing for me to explore. Um, so yeah, I mean, that was kind of it. I also knew some people down there, like that were doing study abroad programs or some like Rotary scholarship type programs. Uh, and got introduced to them and learned enough about the city that I felt like it was a cool place to check out.
Hmm. Nice, nice. And how long were you there before you came to Barcelona?
before I before I came to Barcelona.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I was there for 5 years actually.
Oh
So
wow.
I was there for quite a long time. I traveled back and forth between there and Asia a few times. Uh, After I had left South Korea and I had like some other stints in Asia where I stayed for a few months at a time. And so, like I would pass through Barcelona in between. And I did originally study abroad in Barcelona in college too. So I had some familiarity with the city.
Mm,
But
hmm
ultimately it was sort of a safe landing for me after I got done with Colombia. And I just Colombia just I was there for a long time. Like 5 years was quite a bit as my home base and was ready to move on. And when I was ready to move on, Barcelona was kind of an obvious choice.
hmm Nice. Would you recommend Medellin, Cartagena to folks considering moving there?
Yeah, it's awesome. I think there's like a lot of cool things about Medellin and Colombia in general. My wife and I are actually going back for the first time in 6 years at the end of the month here for like 10 days to
Cool.
go see. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And I've heard I mean, I haven't been back for 6 years, and I heard
Oh wow.
that Medellin, continued to evolve and grow exponentially, but it's always been one of the top like digital nomad or location independent entrepreneur type places. In addition to, hostels and backpacker type crowd. But it's always been, I mean, it hasn't always been, obviously, but like I would say since like 2010, when it got relatively safe, that its popularity has just gone up exponentially and hasn't really slowed down.
Nice, nice. And how long have you been in Barcelona?
We've been in Barcelona for 5 years now, exactly.
5 years.
Almost five
Wow.
years.
Well, another
Yeah.
happy anniversary for you, man. This is July is a busy month for you, my man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
That's cool. And do you see yourself, you and your wife, and potential expanding family? Do you see yourself here for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's like one of the things we're most excited about is Barcelona continues to evolve as well. And I think we just love Europe. And like there's just so many things to do
Hmm.
here. And we
Oh yeah.
also still love to travel other places. So, going back to Latin America like we're doing, or we're going back to Asia at the end of the year, sort of right in between everything. So it still makes all that stuff accessible to us. But I don't know, like Europe's pretty hard to beat in general. So
Hmm.
we're pretty happy here.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it's we have friends come visit and they're like, "Well, what should we do? Isn't everything like super far?" And I'm like, "No, dude, we can drive to France in like an hour and a half or Costa Brava or Valencia or take a,
Yeah.
quick train to Madrid or, you know, a flight anywhere like in 2 hours or less, basically. Like it's absurd living here.
Yeah,
Um,
it's amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
the proximity stuff is really cool.
yeah. And for someone who, you know, lives the majority of their life in their head and has a lot of anxiety, such as myself, moving here from Los Angeles, which has earthquakes, fires, tsunamis. I think they got hit by a hurricane like 2 years ago. It's like what do they have here? Like minor earthquakes. They don't get hit by hurricanes. There's no fires that I am aware of. It just seems like there's no like gun violence here either. Um,
Yeah, that's true.
it's
Hope it
there's just
not. I hope it not.
yeah, there's just
I hope.
like so many pros in the pro column.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man. So let's dig into your entrepreneurial career. So how did you make that first dollar 13 short years ago?
Um, so I made it freelancing. But I didn't make it freelancing really doing anything myself. Made I took a couple courses about how to make a dollar online. It was like studying different business models, and I experimented with a couple different things. I was trying to sell like some info products related to like how to get a job teaching English in Asia and stuff. And I had some minor success with that. I guess like technically that was my first dollar online, but my first real
Hmm.
dollar online came from um, a freelancing website. So it was like I took this course on how to write email copy, basically, and that was one thing where I was sitting with a friend of mine in cafes in Medellin, and every day we would meet up at 7 in the morning, just trying to figure out like how to make our first $1,000 a month online. That was kind of like the goal for us, and like we just really wanted to figure out how to go from 0 to 1. Um, and yeah, I took this email copywriting course. It seemed like something that people could get value out of. It was sort of a strange thing to like run across as like your first thing, to get any sort of exposure to like online, making money wise. Um, but for whatever reason, like I took that course and we started, technically we were working on this project to like sell these ebooks, right? We were hiring graphic designers and writers. And then one day my friend, who became my business partner shortly after, switched his profile from looking to hire graphic designers and writers on a site like Upwork. It was Elance and Odesk, which existed before they merged and created Upwork.
Hmm.
Um, and he just switched his profile to be a contractor, to be like an email copywriter, like kind of on a whim one day. And he
Hmm.
applied to a couple jobs and he hired. And as soon as he got hired, he he shared the job with me. So that was pretty cool. But he pitched this guy randomly like $5,000 on an email series, and that like blew my mind. And so we hired so then we hired different contractors to figure out like how to do the job, and we're sort of like learning on the go. Um, and that was it, man. And then like 15 days later, I mean, I did the same thing with my profile. I just started applying for jobs like crazy. I got a dude to pay me $6,000 for a basic sales funnel and some emails. And then I kind of learned like the basic concepts of like what a sales funnel was. And then I learned like all the different other things associated with what goes on online marketing wise from a foundational perspective.
Hmm.
And then it was off to the races from there.
Were there any key resources or books or mentors that kind of taught you the name of the game here? You know, just to know to charge 5 or 6K, dude. Like where did that come from?
That was honestly like I had a business partner at the time that was pretty bold, and he just kind of threw a number out there, and that was
Yeah.
like kind of how I like gauged pricing. So that was honestly totally random, but I guess we had a little bit of context because the two courses that I took, there was a course by Noah Kagan that was like how to make your first $1,000 online, and then there was
Mhm.
another email marketing course was by a guy named Andre Chaperon. It's called like autoresponder madness. And that was how we learned kind of like the basic process of like what we were selling. And I guess through just like research online, we figured out that email copywriters got paid a lot more than like people who write blog posts.
Hmm.
Um, so that was like a easy way to start in terms of something that had like a high dollar per per hour of output, I guess. Like it was just like a high dollar product because the ROI associated with email marketing is quite high. So email copy is valuable.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I think Noah Kagan lives in Barcelona.
Yeah, he spends some time here. I think he spends like half the year here now. And he's got a house in Austin as well.
Yeah. You ever run into him?
No, but I've been part of the Dynamite Circle for a long time. So that's like a mutual group that we have in common. And
Mm.
I think he actually hangs out with others of uh that group here. Dan and Ian, they also come to Barcelona and spend some time. So we have a lot of mutual like friends and common circles, but I've actually never met him in real life.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys cross paths sometime soon. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're doing email copy, you're an email copywriter, you're finding jobs on Upwork. What next? How do you reach that next level of success?
Yeah, so I guess like I mean the first goal was like, okay, how do I make like $2,000 or $3,000 a month so that like I don't have to spend any more of the money that I have and I can like afford to live abroad. And once I figured that out, that was pretty cool. But like and that sort of, joy and euphoria lasted like a little while. I was perfectly happy to do that like for a while. Like for the next like 2.5 years. I just basically hustled with my business partner doing the same thing that we did to make money. And then we just kept taking on projects, mostly related to email marketing and sales funnels.
Mhm.
And the scope with which we like, allocated work to each project varied, just depending on like what we could sell. So sometimes we would do a full website, we would include more graphic design, blah, 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 whatever was needed. You know what I mean? And sometimes we would just do emails and the implementation into like someone's email provider, email service provider, something like that. But then after a while, like I mean, I was pretty, both my business partner and I were pretty diligent, like about learning and just figuring more stuff about online business. And every morning for many years in a row, but especially those first few years, like I would say and read books at the cafe before I would get my day started. And two of the books that I read that were highly recommended, that are still highly recommended, that I still would recommend as resources to new and intermediate entrepreneurs are the E Myth and Built to Sell.
Oh,
Um,
dude. Yes.
so those two books are pretty popular, obviously. So like, I mean, you know, I'm not recommending anything that's crazy new for anyone who's
Maybe
had like
maybe in
some
our circles they are, but I mean most of my clients, I'm like, have you heard of Built to Sell? They're like, built to what? Like,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I take that for granted too. I mean, I think like within my circle, there's like mine and your circle, there's probably like 50 books that I could rattle off, and it's all sort of like the templated version of like how to get started as an entrepreneur online, you know what I mean? And like everybody's recommended
mhm,
these books. And those were two, you know, pretty impactful ones. And as far as like the people that I knew, like doing digital marketing and selling like agency services online, everyone was basically like glorified freelancer, including more like most of my friends, with the exception of like maybe like one who was actually in a service business that like he was able to scale like significantly. So I just wanted to figure out how to build and scale, like, and build a sellable business, like build an asset and like have something that worked without me. Cause, me and my partner were doing all the sales, we're doing the product management, like we're doing all that shit. So we're just trying to figure out like, and we worked with various contractors and stuff, but so in some ways we were a step ahead. Like we already kind of like created this thing, but have like a, we didn't have like a service, a specific service that we were offering in such a way that it was sort of productized, which is another term that, is popular these days, productized service. And it was still kind of that really that really resembles like what Built to Sell is all about is productizing your service. So we focused on like the different things that we were doing within the agency. And we actually, funnily enough, landed on like we kind of just picked, dude. We were just like, dude, fuck it. Like we're gonna pick something that we can build a business around that will ultimately become something we can remove ourselves from and something that we can sell
Mm-hmm.
one day.
Mm-hmm.
We just picked blog posts because we had done blog posts, email copy. At this point, we had done so many different things and we'd hired so many different contractors just because the nature of the business was that we were getting requests to do different things for different people, right? So over time, we weren't just doing email copy, we weren't just doing sales funnels, we were doing a lot of different things. But we saw that one of the things that was easiest to set up as like a recurring kind of model, or we sort of hypothesized that like blog posts, like people need blog posts on a consistent basis. So what could we set people up on a subscription with that they would pay us for on a regular monthly basis? And content marketing obviously requires consistency. So we just basically made up like a few different packages and slapped some pricing on there with regard to like what those recurring packages would be. And I remember we were we were pretty low on funds at one point, and we both just kind of got really bored and burnt out from selling like the stuff that we had been doing before, and we just basically spent another 2 months every morning in the cafes again, just hustling, making calls on Skype, and just being like just selling like crazy our new offers. And we eventually got some people on subscriptions, and we were able to build that into a recurring business model. So there were
Mm-hmm.
plenty of challenges along the way, but ultimately, that was the first business that I was able to build and scale to. It wasn't crazy business at its peak. We were doing like $50,000 a month, but it was automated and like it was all that was spread across a few dozen subscriptions, and we had a small team do all the work for us, and we didn't have to do anything. So, and ultimately we also sold that business. So we were able to attribute a value to that and get someone to buy it from us. And that happened in 2019. So that was, yeah, I guess 6 years. Maybe I lied
Mm-hmm.
a little bit about my first dollar online. My first dollar online, I guess, was in 2013. So that's 11 years ago, not 12 years ago or 13 years, whatever I said. Um, but yeah, and then sold that in 2019. So that was the evolution of the first business and more or less like
Yeah.
what we focused on. And it all happened by accident. Like, I mean, obviously there was some intention, but we were just selling what people were buying, and we were just taking guesses as to like the next best thing to do, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. So in Built to Sell, he at towards the end of the book, he kind of breaks down the most valuable types of businesses and the recurring revenue businesses. I think we're like number one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that book, amazing book. Obviously had a tremendous impact on you guys. Um, so are you still business partners with that original business partner? Or do you guys still work together in some
No,
capacity?
no, we don't talk either. So,
Oh,
it's part of the deal sometimes.
yeah. Yeah, I had a business partner from 2012 to 2014, and we went about 3 years without talking as well.
Yeah, I think
So,
we may talk. We actually grew up together. So like I think it was just a lot, man. We grew up together as well. So there was a lot of like shared history. But I mean, I'm very grateful to him. He always motivated me to be, he basically is part of the reason why I had enough confidence to even try to, you know,
hmm
get started, believe that like online entrepreneurship was like even a thing. But I think with business partnerships starting out especially, you don't really put them together for the right reasons, Like in our case, it
hmm
was both kind of like, we had each other, so it was less scary, right? So like if you're doing it with someone else, you can kind of like share the burden of certain things.
hmm
Uh and then after a while you get to kind of understand like the real like like how you work together and then the division of business like responsibilities, which actually weren't that bad. Like we didn't have a bad division of responsibilities in terms of how we like flowed with each other. I just think ultimately it was a lot like just a lot of stuff over the years. And hopefully we'll talk again someday.
Yeah, yeah. Fingers crossed. Me and my ex-business partner, we we share a deep love of movies and TV shows. So we buried the hatchet, and now we have a podcast where we compare episodes of The Sopranos to episodes of Mad Men.
Hilarious. Awesome.
So
What a name.
yeah, so that's a great time. So getting back to your business success, how did you scale it and how did you sell it?
Um, yes. So I mean, like scaling it was tough. It wasn't fast. And like I said, I mean, we had mild success. We were doing $50,000 a month type business. And but we didn't
Which
have
is
a few dozen.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's a huge
yeah,
accomplishment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. And it's easy to like, the more that you do, the easier it is to like discount everything that you've done. But there's stepping stones, obviously. Um, but we actually started cold email outreach like in the days when it was like easier. So like I've been doing cold email since like 2014 to get all of our clients. We always got clients through cold email.
Mhm.
But back then it was easier. And then up until 2018, it was still decent. And then midway through 2018, I would say it got pretty tough. Just a lot of the landscape like changed. But it was all cold email really. Like that was how we got clients.
Nice. And then walk me through the sale. Were you looking for that? Did someone find you? What how did that process go down?
Yeah, I mean, we reached a point where like things were relatively stagnant with the business. Like it was just becoming really frustrating to like try and grow it anymore. And I honestly didn't really think that we had achieved our goal of like building a business that was like sellable for any sort of like sum of money, right? And you got to keep in mind that, our first goals were to make each other, two or $3,000 a month. And now we had created a business which was, sometimes paying each of us $12,000 a month. Like we had good and bad months, but like that was pretty cool. Um, so like the business, like as soon as I moved away from Medellin, my business partner traveled a little bit too, and then that's kind of like when we started kind of there started to be like a little bit of like an emotional separation from us, I guess. And I just personally, I really wanted to do something else. I actually can't speak for him. But I personally really wanted to do something else. And I was just really looking at options in terms of like what that next thing would be. Um, and just randomly, I just kind of started talking to like business brokers when I was in Asia. I took a trip to Asia after I'd come to Barcelona that summer of 2018. And yeah, I just got like an appraisal for the business that was much higher than like what I thought. Cause like I'd never sold a business before. So I had no idea like what it would actually be worth
Mm-hmm.
and like what someone would be willing to pay for it. And like
Mm-hmm.
the initial appraisal was like over $500,000. And I was like, holy shit, like that's pretty cool. Like that would definitely be worth selling it for. So yeah, so we sold it for around $500,000 and split that up between the two of us, and that was like the first win. But I wasn't looking. I did play a couple brokers off of each other just to kind of you don't really play them off of each other necessarily at that level. You kind of just pick. But I evaluated a couple different brokerages. Ultimately, for my first business, sold it through a brokerage called Quiet Light Brokerage, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a good experience. And really, it was also quick. Um, but I wasn't necessarily like looking. It sort of just happened to be an option, and I was just aware, so I pursued it.
Nice. That's awesome. Wow. That is an incredible achievement going from just wanting to make 2 to 3K per month to selling a business for around $500,000 bucks. That's awesome. So post sale, and it sounds like that was the end of the partnership. What was next?
Yeah. So, well, for a year, I kind of did, well, for like 8 or 9 months, I was trying to figure out what to do. I didn't really have an idea. I had an idea to do like kind of a coaching and consulting group. I
Mm,
sort of loosely got that off the ground and started running it. And I did a virtual summit where I had like probably like 40 different business owners and people within like the agency space that had like bought and sold businesses come on and built like a little bit of a community and had some decent success with a friend of mine. And then I started consulting more. And one of the consulting clients that I had, like the engagement just became, it just got to the point where it was like, okay, I think there's a real opportunity here. So ultimately, I pitched him on working together, and I closed down the coaching and consulting group, and I went full time with him,
mm,
and ultimately earned my way into an equity partnership, and then helped scale that business, which was sort of the next level up for me. Because that
mm.
business, when I started working, it was another content writing service as well. It was called Word Agents, and they were doing around, I don't know, let's say 600, $700,000 a year. And within a year and a half, I helped them scale to almost 4 million and led them to a near 8-figure offer as well, which was kind of the plan to try and, make a few million bucks from that with my piece and move on. And yeah, that was the next thing. There's another story that's not finished there, but that was what I did afterwards.
Wow. Okay. And what was the key strategies you put in place to scale from six to seven figures?
Well, one of the things in that industry that I realized was when I started working with that business was how much more money you could sell. It's like if you've ever taken an economics class and you've studied like the like the price to equilibrium ratio or whatever it's called, where you try and figure out like, what price to sell something for to get the most number of customers. Word agents, in contrast from Content Pros, which was the name of my first business, like at Content Pros, we were selling content for really expensive, like really expensive price per word. So it was more kind of like high touch. Like we paid the writers a lot more. It was more highly researched content, and people only bought a few pieces from us. And in the affiliate and like niche site world, there was this other segment of the market that I was kind of unaware of. And when I started working with that company, I realized that if you charged, around 5 to 8 cents a word, let's say 4 to 8 cents a word, depending on like the number of words someone got, you could sell a lot more because those guys were buying in
Mm.
bulk. When I started working with word agents, it sort of opened my eyes, like, oh man, like, you know, and like at one point we would get wires of like 120 G's at a time, like because people in that space just buy so many words.
Oh
So it
wow.
just opened the possibilities of scaling that business uh, higher, easier, and it was a lot easier to scale. And the way that we scaled was really through I built an email list from zero to like 20,000. So I utilized paid marketing strategies, and then I also utilized my business partner on that project had a pretty reputable name in the SEO space. So we were able to leverage that and his contacts and do a lot of strategic partnerships. So we recreated all of his offers such that they could be marketed more effectively. And by that I mean like when you're trying to sell something in the services space and you don't have it packaged accordingly, it's really difficult to set up like any sort of like basic sales funnel so that you can just have a clearly like understandable offer flow, right? So with the strategic partnerships, we created, 3 or 4 packages of numbers of word credits that you could buy with us. And then when we did these strategic partnerships, we could, you know, give people a discounted first offer or something. So we'd give them, 50% off 1,000 words or something, or we'd even give them 1,000, or we'd give them 1,000 words for $1, or like 2,000 words for $10 or something, and we could make special offers like that. And because we had our tentacles in the SEO space, we could get in these Facebook communities and on other people's email lists and then we could build our email list. And over time, that just resulted in building a large customer base that we could then remarket to on our email list, which sort of became my bread and butter with that business. Is we would run seasonal promos, we would run a Black Friday deal, etc. Um, and we would just people would buy like crazy. Actually, one Black Friday in 2021, we did $1 million in November, in 1 month with that business, which was pretty cool, especially for a service business. Like, you know, I don't know like too many of my friends in the service space, especially the productized service space, that have done numbers like that. So it was super
Yeah.
cool for a while.
Okay. Man. So many follow-up questions. I'm cursing the clock for moving so fast during this interview. We'll have to have you back on at a later time. Two final questions, and I will set you free. Um, so this show, a large proportion of our audience is financial advisors, and they love working with business owners. Most of my financial advisor clients, they're like, our target market is business owners. Do you have a financial advisor? And if you do, if not, what would attract you to one, or what attracted you to the one that you have?
I do not have a financial advisor at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been, I'm into like managing my own finances. So I think that's like one
Yeah.
thing that I've paid a lot of attention to. But yeah, like not opposed to talking to a financial advisor and, getting things more squared away, over time.
Yeah. What could they say that would get your attention?
I think for me, like one of the things that like I've sort of intuited and that I've been told historically is like personally, like my greatest asset is like me, and
Hmm.
like my risk aversion is like probably not like as good as it should be. But at the same time, the biggest like sums of money that I've ever made have come from like me just investing in like the next thing. Like the biggest like bit of ROI is like another business, right? So
Hmm.
trying to figure out like you know, a financial advisor that can kind of balance like that with like a traditional strategy. Because for me, it's like, I just fundamentally don't believe that like, getting 7% a year on my money and then continuing to invest in that is like my path to wealth. Um, so that's finding someone that also believes that is, more challenging when you're talking to traditional financial advisors.
That's an awesome answer. I agree with you. Um, Thank you for sharing that. My final question is open-ended. You can take it in any direction you want. Perhaps it includes the phrase behind you. What are you working towards?
That's a good question, man.
Thanks.
I think throughout my whole like entrepreneurial journey, I've just been really focused on trying to do something that I feel like makes me happy and creates an impact. And it's not to say that I haven't done cool things with cool people, and that I haven't, enjoyed or been fulfilled by those experiences in some ways. But I think, entrepreneurially, at least, like I'm just working towards fulfillment. And that's the most important thing to me because we spend so much time, working on shit that I just only care about working on stuff that I actually care about. And it's, you know, you can kind of make excuses if you're doing something that you don't really like, that it's about the team or the people that you work with. But at the end of the day, you know the truth. Like if you're not really fulfilled by what you're just not, man. So
Yeah,
that's the most important thing to me now.
awesome. Amen. Amen to that, brother. And where can our audience find out more about you?
Man, I guess, like the socials. I'm not super active anywhere, to be honest. Like Tommy
Mhm.
underscore joiner on Instagram is my account there. I barely post any days, but I barely post there these days anymore. But Thomas.joiner at Gmail, Thomas with an H, joiner with an I at gmail.com is my email. So individually I connect with a lot of people that way.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Well, Tommy, thank you so much for doing this, man. This was freaking awesome.
Yeah, likewise, man. I had a good time.
Yeah, had a blast. And awesome. Thanks so much to all our listeners out there. Thanks for tuning in and keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.